When you buy Kroger brand products, you feel like you're winning. That's because they offer proven quality at lower than low prices. In fact, we guarantee that you and your family will love how Kroger brand products taste, or you get your money back. So next time you're shopping for the family, look for delicious Kroger brand products, because they'll make you all feel like you're winning. Shop now, in-store, or online. Bakers, fresh for everyone.
You never want to find yourself out on the water fishing without the essentials. So it's best to always pack a Columbia PFG Solar Stream Elite hoodie to protect against the sun. I mean, it provides great protection and it's really breathable so you don't get hot. That's a win-win. Columbia PFG has a lot of great gear. So before you head out on the water, head over to Columbia.com/PFG to shop their performance fishing gear.
It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant Prime.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live right here on Giants.com and the Giants mobile app. It's all brought to you by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I am John Schmeelk, joined for the second straight day by Matthew Citak, talking Giants football with you. We'll take your calls at 201-939-4513. As we said yesterday, we pushed the show back a half an hour so we could do our media availabilities and such after the Giants' third OTA completed today. We got a lot of people out there today, Mr. Citak. We got the defensive assistants. First, we got Brian Daboll. We got Kayvon Thibodeau. We got Brian Burns. We got Daniel Jones. We got Cordell Flott. So I will let you choose. Where would you like to start, sir?
Let's start with Brian Burns.
Sure, go ahead. What do you got?
And I guess Burns and as well as Kayvon, because it's kind of hard to talk about one without somewhat mentioning the other one as well.
And both guys were asked a lot about each other in their media interviews, for sure.
Yeah, so there was actually one thing I noticed during practice that each of the guys during their media session then brought up as well, which is during practice, even in like the warm-up drills when the outside linebackers are off to the side, Brian Burns, Kayvon would do a drill first, Brian Burns would go right after, and you can see that they just compete every single rep that they're taking. Even in these warm-up drills, they are competing and trying to best each other. And while talking to the media after practice, both of them brought it up, how each one has been pushing the other one to try to get the best out of them. And, you know, I feel like a lot of the time you hear players say that, and at least sometimes it's talk, but you can literally see it is May 23rd right now, and you can see that those two guys are pushing each other every single rep, every single time they step onto the field, and that is just very encouraging to see because those two guys are going to be vital to the defense's success this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brian Burns talked a little bit about how, you know, he's kind of taking the role that Hassan Reddick took with him when he was in Carolina, where Reddick was a young veteran and Burns was a younger guy, and he kind of picked up some tricks from Reddick and stuff like that. And now that Reddick's with the Jets, he's going to actually meet up with him in a couple weekends. They're going to get together, talk about things. And, you know, Kayvon said that, look, I'm trying to learn some of the, you know, I think he called them gems from Thibodeau, from Burns rather, you know, in the meeting room, because, you know, Burns, he's only 26, but he's been in the league now for 6 years, right? It's 6 years. So, you know, he's learning some of those tricks from him. And, you know, the dynamic of Burns playing off Thibodeau, both of them playing off Dexter Lawrence. Kayvon Thibodeau talked about that too, where, you know, when Lawrence is pushing the pocket up, that affects how you're going to rush the passer. If Dexter's going to flush guys out to you on the outside, that adjusts the angle you're going to take on, you know, some of your pass rushes. So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting. You know, and we also found out when we talked to the defensive coaches that the edge players or outside linebackers, defensive ends in sub-package, which is basically, you know, 70% of the time anyway. You know, they've been working with Dre Patterson too in terms of their pass rush moves. So they have a good chemistry if they're running stunts and stuff like that. When last year they were with the outside linebackers at all times. Now they're going to be with the defensive line coach because, frankly, they act as defensive ends most times when you're in, sub packages. So just some interesting things there in terms of, those guys trying to learn each other, get along, compete with each other to your point, and make each other better as they move along here.
Yeah, and I feel like almost every time I'm on the show, Coach Patterson comes up, and I can't help but rave about him. And I believe it was Kayvon that had a pretty funny quote about Coach Dre, saying he's been around for so long, he's sort of like the Mr. Miyagi.
Mr. Miyagi or Yoda. Which
those are two pretty good characters to be compared to if you're a NFL coach. But yeah, the fact that Dre Patterson is already working with these outside linebackers, that's only going to help Kayvon, Burns, Azeez Ojulari, Tomon Fox, that whole group. I mean, we saw how much of an effect and an impact Coach Patterson had on Dexter Lawrence. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that Dexter Lawrence's true breakout began once in the first season that he had Coach Patterson as his position coach. So I was very excited to hear that Coach Dre is going to be working with that group as well, and I think he's just going to help bring out the best of those guys.
Absolutely, and we also had a chance when we talked to the defensive assistants. This is all in the same theme, so I'll bring it up. I had a chance to talk to Charlie Bullen. I'd only chatted with him briefly and introduced myself to him in the hallway. He's the Giants now outside linebacker coach, but also edge player. And he basically said Brian Burns has naturally taken over the leadership role in that room. He says he hasn't gone back and checked, but he thinks this is the only time he's ever had a position group where not one player was 30 years old in the whole group. And that's what you're looking at now with this very young Giant outside linebacker, edge rusher type of group. And he really thinks that Burns has taken over that natural leadership role. And, you listen to Burns talk, and he's, like we said, he's only 26. He's an old soul. The way he talks, he's very level. He talks about, basically just trying to keep the main thing. That was a big thing he talked about because he was asked about coming to New York, getting fame and being a star or whatever. And he goes, look, I just got to worry about football, and then the other stuff's going to come naturally. So I just, whenever you hear him talk, and, I had the long sit down with him when he came here. It's on the Huddle podcast if you want to go back and find it. He just strikes me as kind of an old soul, and frankly, Kayvon a little bit too. I was pretty impressed. Yeah. Young guy, Mr. Miyagi. I bet you a lot of kids his age don't even know who Mr. Miyagi is.
Very true.
Right? Yoda has bridged generations now, but Mr. Miyagi, I'm pretty impressed that was the first name he brought up.
Yeah.
Not bad.
There was a Karate Kid remake, though, with Jackie Chan as Mr. Miyagi.
Oh, was his name in the movie actually Mr. Miyagi still?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I was not aware of that. I figured they would rename. I didn't think he would play the same character. I thought maybe there would be a different character.
Fair.
Okay, good to know, Pearson. Thank you. I didn't know that.
But yeah, I mean, the two.
Hello, non sequitur. Yes, go ahead.
Those two guys couldn't agree more. They seem mature beyond their years. I mean, especially Kayvon. Kayvon is, what is he, 20, 22, 23? And when he just speaks to the media, he's so composed, knows it, like you can tell he's not thinking about what he's saying. Like he just knows exactly what to say in response.
He's very polished.
Yes.
Is the word I would use.
Yes. Yeah. Very, very polished. And I mean, off the field, on the field, it is clear that those two outside linebackers are meshing together very well. It did not take long. I mean, there was the video that came out, I think it was from last month, of the two of them participating in this fishing competition. And there's a video of them on a boat practicing a potential sack dance. And you can just see that the vibes between the two of them are amazing.
Did it involve diving into the body of water?
No.
Okay. That's probably not going to work on the football field.
Thankfully it did not include any diving, anything like that. They stayed on the boat. But yeah, I mean,
it'd be a pretty big boat to fit those two guys on. I'm pretty impressed, actually.
Kayvon, he's spoken in the past and brought it up again today. The fact that when he was doing a college visit, when he was in high school, he actually stayed with Brian Burns, and that is where their relationship began. And he said it's sort of like a full circle moment that they're now on the same team, in the same room together, and it's clear that they already have a strong connection, and that connection is only going to continue to build, and that's only going to benefit both the pass rush and the entire defense. I mean, I believe it was Kayvon or Burns. See, I'm already mixing the two of them up, their media sessions, but one of them spoke about how it takes a complete effort from the defense. It's not, it was Kayvon. It's not basketball where you have one guy like a LeBron James that can just go out there, dominate, and, not that he doesn't need his teammates, but, in the NBA, one guy can sort of fully take over a game. In the NFL, while we do see that at times, it's a lot harder. It's really 11 guys out there that have to all be playing cohesively as a unit in order to have success. And he mentioned that the pass rush is only great if the backfield, the defensive backfield can hold up their end, and vice versa. No corner is going to get interception if there's zero pass rush, because the quarterback's going to sit in the pocket all day and wait for a receiver to eventually get open. So the relationship between those two already being so strong, with training camp not even for another 2 months away, it's going to really help both, the outside linebacker group and just the entire defense overall.
Yeah, and both guys talked about how they kind of relish the idea of relying on your front four to get to the quarterback, and that's something that they will look forward to trying to do. Just sticking up front, I had a chance to talk to Dre Patterson a little bit before we got to Brian Daboll, and we'll get to Coach Daboll and the offensive guys in a second. But talking to Patterson, I tried to kind of fish out of him, and he actually gave me some really straightforward answers about what they're doing with that second defensive tackle spot. Mm-hmm. So, and as we've talked about, well, who's the 3 technique? Do you maybe then move Dex to the 3 if you put someone else in nose? And I asked him, my first question was, well, on early downs, you've brought in a lot of other big bodies like Phillips, you have Jordan Riley. On early downs, would you consider moving one of those guys in a nose and putting Dexter a 3 technique? He looks at me, he laughs, he goes, you trying to get me fired? You're going to take that guy who's this monster, a nose tackle, that nobody can block, and take him at a nose tackle? No. On early downs, Dexter Lawrence is playing nose tackle. It's good. So, easy, done, we know.
Very good.
Put it in stone, we know he's not moving there. And he basically said, look, and then we had a longer conversation. He goes, I've had a lot of different body types on early downs, be that second defensive tackle. I've had smaller guys, I've had bigger guys, and it works. So he said basically right now what they're trying to do is figure out what the fourth piece of that puzzle is on that defensive front when you're in the, when you're in that line, and who that other body is going to be next to Dexter Lawrence. Could it be DJ Davidson? Sure. Could it be Nacho? Sure. It depends on who's going to be there on early downs. If it's the odd man front with your classic 3-4 or your 4-3. So he says he's open to different type of body types there. He's not, we talked a lot at the draft trying to get that 290-pound upfield quick guy. He's not married to having a guy like that being that second defensive tackle or the 2 tackles next to Dexter when you're in your odd man front if you're in base defense, or your second defensive tackle if you're an even man front. So I thought that was interesting. And then he said on later downs in the pass rush, you know who 3 of the guys are, right? You got Burns, you got Thibodeau. And then where you line up Dex can change. He can rush him the nose, he can rush him the 3 technique, you can move him around. Then you figure out, again, what's the fit in that fourth rush. Does Burns or Thibodeau maybe move inside? And then you have Ojulari as the other outside guy, and that's how you do it. So he says right now they're trying to figure out the combinations that work best in both those situations. But on early downs at least, Dex is going to be the nose tackle. So you can put that to bed.
Yeah, and that is obviously a very good thing for the defense. I mean, the last 2 seasons, Dex has led the league in pressures from the nose tackle position. And frankly, it hasn't been very close. Pro Football Focus, loved keeping track of that one specific stat. And every time they would, put a graphic out, it would say top most pressures from players lined up at the nose tackle position. Dexter Lawrence would always be the top of the list, and the next one down would be about 30 pressures below.
Correct.
So Dexter lining up at the nose tackle, that's only going to mean good things for the defense.
Yeah, and we talked about how it was important for him to try to stick there if you could, and it looks like they're going to try to do that as well. All right, let's go to the offensive side of the ball. Actually, Cordell Flott spoke as well on defense. We should mention that very briefly. Not a ton. Cordell's not a big long talker. He gives very short, succinct answers. The one thing I took out, he said he's 177 right now, and he was 173 when he got here, so, gained 3-4 pounds or whatever it is since he got here. But he's excited. He goes, I'll play inside or outside, but he's excited And you could tell his face lit up a little bit, kind of talked about facing the quarterback more when you're playing a little bit more zone, where you're watching the quarterback and be able to make more plays on the ball. It seems like something he's excited about.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on the few things I was going to bring up. He mentioned completely comfortable no matter where they put him. He just wants to help the defense and help the team win any way he can. And, yeah, when he was asked about the specific coverage under Shane Bowen, you could tell that he was excited for the opportunity to potentially pick up, a couple more interceptions this season.
This Memorial Day, raise a glass to those who served. And let Blinds.com raise the bar on home decor. Serving up style with huge summer savings. Blinds.com is the better way to get custom window treatments. Online with upfront pricing and no salespeople at your door or inflated showroom prices. Upgrading your window coverings can be a minor project with a major impact, and Blinds.com makes it easy and affordable for you. Choose from premium blinds, shutters, motorized options, and outdoor shades for your patio. Just in time for summer fun. Blinds.com's free design experts will help you find the perfect window treatments for your home and even send free samples. Plus, you can get unlimited window treatments installed for one low cost, all backed by Blinds.com's 100% satisfaction guarantee. Shop Blinds.com's Memorial Day sale happening now. Save up to 50% plus premium doorbusters. Up to 50% off for a limited time at Blinds.com. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's jump now to the offensive side of the ball, and we can start with Brian Daboll here, because he said some things publicly that I was not able to say about what I saw in the first day of OTAs. It was just be very excited, because I like to talk about it, because thank you, Coach. So John Runyon's right guard right now. Jermaine Illuminor is left guard right now, which is what we saw throughout OTAs this week. And they're focusing on Evan Neal out at right tackle. He's not doing everything yet. He's still coming back from the ankle injury. But he's out there. So they're focusing him at right tackle to start, Runyon at right guard, Illuminor at left guard. So that's how but obviously Andrew Thomas at left tackle and John Michael Schmitz at center. So that would be your offensive line look right now. And I think, Daboll said they're trying to cross-train these guys in different spots. I think Aaron Judge is at home run, by the way. They're trying to cross-train these guys in different spots. But, at some point, if it works, they'll kind of try to focus in on these guys in specific spots as you get deeper into camp. Because this is right now as a teaching, as Brian Daboll pointed out, we should make this clear. This is not the competition part of the offseason where guys are fighting for jobs right now. This is learning and teaching. So right now, that's where they have the guys focusing, and they'll, cross-train as they go. Yeah,
and I mean, that's exactly this time of year. It's best to just get guys reps at the different positions. I mean, I noticed Josh Azudu has been lined up sort of all over the offensive line so far this week, which is good. I mean, one of the biggest things that Coach Daboll has preached since he got here, and Joe Shane, is versatility. They want guys that can play, that don't just line up in one spot and that's it. They want guys that can sort of line up multiple spots all over and be able to help and ready to contribute any way possible. So, yeah, at this time of the season, this time of the year, I wouldn't hold too much into like where specifically guys are getting reps at, because they're trying things out now, and they're gonna eventually, once we get to training camp, those reps, as you said, are gonna count for a lot more than what these reps are right now. And by the way, it's not a surprise. Joe Shane said they were going to give Evan Neal another shot at right tackle. So this is kind of what we expected. I was wondering Illuminor right versus left side, Runyon right versus left. But when Runyon got here and I did the one-on-one with him and he told me, I'm kind of more comfortable on the right side, done. Goal. Yeah. Wherever he thinks he's best, Illuminor's done both sides enough where you feel you can move him around enough. So Daniel Jones spoke to the media today. They really, really, really tried to get him to say something negative about the Giants potentially drafting a quarterback. Daniel Jones could have been named to the NBA All-Defense team over the course of that press conference. Did a really good job. Basically said, look, I believe his quote was, I wasn't fired up about the possibility, I think was as far as he would went, of the Giants potentially drafting a quarterback, which is such a Daniel way to answer that question. But otherwise, say, look, I can just worry about me, control what I can control, and when you're in the NFL at this level, you expect to always be competing for your spot. Nothing is given to you. So that's how he handled those questions, and no surprise, it's Daniel that he handled them as well as you possibly could. Yeah, I mean, he's been handling pressure from the media here since he got here, honestly, since his rookie season. So it didn't surprise me that he was, so composed during that media session. He obviously knew what some of the questions that were coming in terms of what happened on draft night and stuff. But yeah, I think he did a great job of giving the media somewhat of an answer, but then focusing on what's actually important, which is the fact that they didn't spend that first pick on a quarterback. They spent it on a number one receiver, a weapon that he is already growing a connection with. And that is something that while he wasn't fired up about the possibility of drafting a quarterback, he certainly was fired up about the addition of Malik Neighbors, because that is someone who he knows is only going to help elevate his own game.
Yeah,
and the whole offense.
And what I liked about when he was asked about Neighbors, then Matt, he, obviously he brought up all the physical stuff, but he made a point to go out of his way. I think it was the first thing he said, how much he cares and he's working hard to learn the system. So, when that's you'll say that just to say it, but if that's the first thing out of your mouth before you start talking about what a physical freak the guy is, that to me means something, because that means he has made an impression on Daniel, that he is really trying to come in, learn this. He's taking it seriously. He's being professional about it. And I wouldn't expect anything else. We didn't hear any things to the contrary about Malik Neighbors when before the Giants drafted him, that he would have an issue with that sort of stuff. But it's still good to hear the quarterback bring that up first and volunteer that when you're talking about a rookie wide receiver in a system that is notoriously difficult for young wide receivers to learn.
Yeah, and less than a month after he was drafted. It's not like we're at the start of training camp where he's been in the program, been in the building for months now. Like, this guy just got here 2 weeks ago, and you can tell that he already feels comfortable. He's already growing a good relationship with his quarterback and with the rest of the offense. And to what you said, I mean, you can see it out on the practice field. So again, today was the first time I got to see Malik Neighbors
talk about practice
actually on the field. And of course, there was one play in particular where I believe he did a nice double move, and just the ball was in the air and there were just no defenders within
15 yards,
at least 10, 15 yards of him for an easy touchdown grab. And I mean, it just goes to show about the quickness and the speed that Malik Neighbors has. But forgetting that one play, which was incredible, you can just tell every single play he's out there acting like a professional already, which I know, I say that and it sounds like something that should be a given, but especially for rookie wide receivers, that is not always the case. But Malik Neighbors, when he's out on the practice field already, he looks like a pro. He composes himself well. He, you could tell he's giving it his all every single play, and he's not stopping until the whistle blows, which is, kind of all you can ask for from a rookie wide receiver 4 weeks into his NFL career.
Yeah, and obviously we don't know if he's missing assignments or making mistakes. That's something we can tell, obviously. But I think what you like to see, I think what you're seeing so far you like. And, again, just being up close with him again today, he happened to be standing next to me on the sideline, and just a bigger guy. Like, he's thick, well put together wide receiver. It's no wonder he's so good with his run after the catch stuff and breaking tackles. So a couple other notes for practice. And by the way, I was making a joke. Those are fair questions to the media, to Daniel. They have to ask him, but I was just making the point that Daniel handled them well. In terms of what happened in practice, I thought the defensive front did a pretty good job getting in and around the quarterbacks. Of course, there's no contact, so there's not a ton of physical blocking and things of that nature. But I thought the defensive line did a nice job today. You had a little wheel route, or maybe it was a slot fade to Jalen Hyatt over the top. Nice little pass from Tommy DeVito. That would have went for a big gain. I like that. And I thought the secondary got their hands on a couple of footballs. Dane Belton had a chance at a pick, didn't quite come up with it, but he did knock it away. Deontay Banks, Hawkins had a couple of deflections too. So those are the things, Matt, that really stood out to me.
Yeah, to your first point, and back to what we kind of were talking about before with Brian Burns, he had at least one rep where he just would have blown up the quarterback. It would have been a very easy sack. And that was the first moment for me where I was like, whoa, this guy is incredibly explosive. I cannot wait until the pads are on, and more so than when they're going up against another team, another opponent. But I can't wait to see him in a real game action, or even joint practices. Another thing that Coach Daboll brought up, actually,
good one,
real quick. Coach Daboll said most likely there will be joint practices, both with the Detroit Lions before the the first preseason game.
And that'll be here at the Quest.
At Quest in East Rutherford, and then a potential joint practice with the Jets in Florham Park before the second preseason game.
He said one against the Jets is kind of what they were talking about, which is what they did 2 years ago, too. The Jets came here for just one practice.
One practice. So, yeah, even, those practice situations, because in joint practices, that's the closest you're going to get to sort of game reps without it being an actual game.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see Brian Burns out there going up against, opposing offensive linemen.
Oh, not just an opposing offensive lineman. That's Penny Sewell he's going to be going up against. That's going to be fun.
Get your popcorn ready.
That's going to be fun.
That will be very fun.
And Kayvon Thibodeau, too, against Penny Sewell, which will also be good.
Can't wait for that. Other things notice in practice. When the Giants drafted Theo Johnson, one of the biggest things about him was his athleticism. I mean, he had one of the greatest RAS scores from a tight end in the last 30 years. And you can see it when he's out on the practice field. He is fast. He has great hands. He's strong. He is huge. He was the sort of prospect where they said he's a little raw and is going to need some development and to sort of grow into, an NFL tight end.
And he even said that himself when he spoke to the media a couple weeks ago, too.
Yeah. But if he is able to do that, he's going to have a very good NFL career because that guy is built like your ideal tight end. He's huge, he's athletic, and when he's up, playing 7-on-7 or 11-on-11, his athleticism is very easy to see. Another rookie that kind of stood out to me, Tyler Nubin. He didn't have any, particularly standout, amazing plays today, but one of the biggest knocks about Nubin going into the draft was about his speed. His 40 time was a little bit slower than what you would want a starting safety to have. I think he was 4.6 something. But today, seeing him, in some of these reps, he just has game speed. When he's out on the field and on the 7-7, 11-on-11 situations, he looks way faster than whatever that 40 time was. So it's obviously, again, still early. They haven't even been here a month, but Tyler Nubin might be the rookie that I'm just most excited to see once training camp starts, and particularly once we get some game action in the preseason.
201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. Don't forget, folks, go subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. We just had our red bracket breakdown go up, talking about the greatest play bracket at Giants.com/bracket, greatest plays in Giants history. Go vote for Bob Papa and I did a little podcast breaking those plays down. It's on the Giants Huddle podcast feed, YouTube channel, all those other spots. Check it out. And I know I mentioned earlier in the week that we had our rookie player interviews with people that covered them in college. That's an audio-only podcast. A couple people texted me, asking me why it's not on the app because it's not video. So if you want to listen to that podcast, you got to find it on your favorite podcast platform. Again, Giants Huddle Podcast. And for all of our podcasts, leave a 5-star positive review, including for Big Blue Kickoff Live on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favorite podcast. Make sure you go check that out. All right, 201-939-4513. Let's lead us off with Rich in Virginia. He's up first on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hey, Rich.
Good afternoon, John and Matt. I was just on this stair mill here in the gym in Williamsburg, Virginia. I had to call in. It's just this 100th celebration is just terrific. So a couple things listeners might enjoy this. So 21 years ago this month, we had a surprise 25th anniversary for me and my wife. One of my good friends, we have this weekly conference call during all Giant games. Well, my friend in Washington, whose name is Mike, he's listening right now. He came down. The party was on the 12th of May. He went back to Washington. His first granddaughter was born on May 13th.
Nice.
Also, it happens to be the birthday of my other good friend who's on the conference call, who's now living in Florida. And we're both retired Air Force. So interestingly enough, Mike's granddaughter, whose name is Olivia, she was born on May 13th at 11:56 a.m. 11:56 a.m. Do you believe in coincidences? 11:56.
Sims LT, is that what you're going for here?
Exactly. second thing is, I got a kick out of Hugo when he called in yesterday. I had to call him. Hugo only goes back to 78. Well, I go back to 61. And the two friends I mentioned, Mike and Ted, they go back to the 50s. And Dottino and I have discussed this for years. But I think Hugo hit the nail on the head. I think that pass to Megan in that Denver game in 1988 was the last time the Giants ran a successful screen pass. Because for whatever reason, and Dottino and I have gone around the world on this, and he says because the offensive line has never been athletic enough. If the Giants try to run a screen pass, no kidding. You can ask the old timers, Len and Coach Marvin and Hugo and maybe even Charlie. They can't run a screen pass. They cannot run a screen pass. It's just amazing that any other team in the league can run a screen pass. If the Giants try to run a screen pass, it's either going to be Eli will throw it in the dirt, it'll be picked off, or it'll be a loss of 3. I mean, it's just uncanny. And anyway, that's my 2 cents. Love the show. Love this 100th year celebration. Just kudos to the Giants and the organization.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate the call. And look, screen passes are very much about timing, efficiency, working together. Now, the surprising thing is that and you don't go back 30 years. Tiki Barber was an excellent catching screens and running.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I would go back to for the next time. The last time the Giants were really good at screen passes was the Tiki Barber era, where he was very effective running those types of plays. But even with Tom Coughlin and that great offensive line from 06 to 05 to 09 in that era, they could never get the timing quite right on those screen passes for whatever reason.
Yeah, and I mean, let's not forget that as a rookie, Saquon Barkley had 91 receptions.
Yeah, but obviously that was more check down, dump offs.
I know,
screens.
but there were some successful screens in that season, so. I think it's a little bit of a bum rep saying they haven't had a good screen game for 30 plus years. But in terms of the screen game for this season, another rookie I'm very excited to see that I think could be a big contributor when it comes to the screen game with Tyrone Tracy. Obviously, the converted wide receiver, now running back. I think he could have a pretty big impact as a rookie.
Well, he has to prove he can get on the field and pass protection before he can start doing stuff like that.
But, if he does that, if he earns his playing time, I do think he could be a pretty big impact rookie right away. And Devin Singletary, assuming he's healthy, is going to lead the backfield in carries. But it would not surprise me if Tracy could end up potentially leading the backfield in receptions. Again, he's got to earn his playing time, of course. And while Devin Singletary is a capable pass catcher, Eric Ray is in the backfield as well. There's still Gary Brightwell, Jashawn Corbin. Who else? Dante Miller.
Yep, you got them all.
Another guy, Dante Miller. After watching him for the first time today, I can completely understand the nickname Turbo.
Little Turbo, correct? I believe
Little Turbo. But, I mean... Watching him run, it reminded me when he really gets going of, hitting that turbo button when you're playing Madden or, now NCAA football. That's sort of what it looked like out there when every time he touched the ball. But yeah, I do think Tracy, potentially Dante Miller, if he makes the team, those are guys that could help improve the screen game right away.
Let's go to Marty in Manahawkin. He's up next. Hey, Marty.
Hey, John. Hey, Matt. John, I was wondering, being as you have a bird's eye view there today, is Slayton out there? Is he on the field?
Slayton has not been in attendance, no. And Brian Daboll did say that, so I'm once again able to repeat that safely. And Darren Waller has not been here either.
Yeah. Okay. And are all the draft picks signed now?
Don't worry about them being signed, Marty. I honestly don't keep track of that. Matt, do you? Do you know who is signed and who's not?
The only one that is currently unsigned is Tyler Nubin, but again, he's out there at practice taking every rep.
Marty, all these rookie contracts are slotted now, so they'll all get done. I don't let that worry you at all.
Yeah, no problem, man. All right, good. Thanks, John.
I appreciate the call. And look, and Brian Daboll pointed this out in terms of Slayton. He's under contract. So Whether that they work something out, who knows? But, I mean, eventually he'll be here.
Yeah. I don't have much to add to that.
I mean, he'll be here eventually. And again, he's been here long enough. He knows the system. It's not that big of a deal. Hugo in New Jersey's up next. What's up, Hugo?
Well, guys, I wasn't going to call today, but once again, someone used my name, so that prompted me to dial in. Well, look, I'm not going to do any history today because we've done enough. We went back to the 1940s this week in world history, by the way.
Yes.
Not just Giants history. But look, when I got off the phone yesterday, Matt referenced Andrew Thomas as a potential key leader on the team. You know, we haven't talked about this much in the offseason, but as it currently stands, and I'm just going to assume that Waller's not going to be there for a moment, 5 of the 10 captains the Giants had last year are missing at this point in time. Leonard Williams obviously got traded away. Adoree Jackson's not here.
Saquon.
Waller, Saquon, and McKinney. I think that's the 5.
That looks right. Yeah. So the returning captains are Daniel Jones, Andrew Thomas, Dexter Lawrence, Bobby Okereke, and Graham Gano.
Right. And by the way, I thought 10 was over the top. I think call it 5 to 6 probably makes a lot of sense. I think in addition to the returning captains, you guys mentioned maybe a couple of potential captains in Thibodeau and Burns, so they could be new captains, and then maybe somebody else on special teams. Not sure, but anyhow, and this brings me kind of to one of Joe Shane's comments after the draft when talking about Tyler Nubin. And he said he's a culture changer, which I found that language to be interesting because he could have said he fits right into our culture, but he didn't. He said he's a culture changer, and which kind of suggests that the Giants have a very open mind about continuous improvement to the culture, and it almost sounds like Tyler Nubin's already being not as a rookie, but at some point being part of that captain pool.
Yeah, I would expect him to be at some point be part of that leadership pool. And remember too, you talk about culture. This whole defensive culture is new. You know, you could talk about the team culture, that's fine.
Yeah.
But the side of the ball has a culture ingrained in it too, and that comes from the coordinator. The Giants have a new defensive coordinator this year, so I think they are in a lot of ways trying to rebuild a culture on defense around what Shane Bowen's asking this group to do.
But I think Matt hit it yesterday because I think the most, there are captains and then there are the more prominent vocal type captains. The guys who break down the team like McKinney used to do for the defensive side, and of course Saquon was the face of the franchise. So one interesting thing will be who'll step up this year and take on the more prominent leadership roles. I admire Andrew Thomas quite a bit, and I think he may be one. And then
I don't think he's ever going to be. I don't think he's going to be a big vocal guy though. That doesn't strike me as Andrew Thomas as being that rah bring everybody together and be that vocal leader guy. That was more of a Saquon thing to me than it was an Andrew Thomas thing. If I had to pick, that's a good question. Who would I?
They're all kind of quiet. Yeah,
I know. I'm trying to think who the vocal leader on offense would be because Waller's really not that type of guy. Daniel's not that type of guy.
Nah.
Devin Singletary's not that type of guy. Maybe Neighbors can develop into that kind of emotional vocal type of spark plug. I wouldn't expect him to be a leader this early, but maybe he can kind of be that, just given his style of play, kind of that emotional spark plug. Like even a John Michael Schmitz, he's a real quiet kid. Like you don't have like that big, boisterous vocal guy on offense right now. At least I don't think so.
And even on defense, Okereke is more like an intellectual guy, is the way I see him.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And Dexter has a great personality, but he's not overly vocal either. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this evolves over the course of the year.
I could see Dexter being an emotional leader more than a vocal leader, if you understand the kind of dichotomy there.
I agree. He has that dog in him, right? But I agree with that. Anyhow, I'll leave it at that. Thanks for taking my call. I'll come up with more historical stuff for next week.
Nah, it's all good, Hugo. Appreciate the call, man. I could see Thibodeau being eventually that, louder vocal leader on defense. I could see him taking that role.
For sure. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he got voted a captain by his teammates as soon as this season. I mean, he's already – last year we saw more so than as his rookie year. He already started emerging as a pretty vocal leader. And now, as Hugo mentioned, half of the team captains from last year are gone. Multiple guys from the defensive side of the ball. There's an opening there for someone, whether it's him, Burns, both of them. I wouldn't be surprised by either of them really stepping up. But I've been trying to find, and I just found it, why yesterday I kind of said this feeling about Andrew Thomas stepping up into that leadership role. It's because he was asked about it last month when the offseason workout program first started. And he said that he actually has thought about it. That
read the quote.
Yeah, so the whole quote is, a lot of the responsibility comes with that role, as in being one of the team captains, the voice of the team. And it's just a challenge for myself to be conscious of the things that the team may need and speak up when I need to. I think that started a little bit, especially towards the end of last year, just trying to motivate guys. Obviously, weren't in contention, so just trying to help guys as much as I could and address the offense and things of that nature. Just do more of that and be a better leader. So this is something that clearly has already been on Andrew Thomas's mind since the end of last season. And, it's tough to tell right now because while there's some action going on in the field, especially when it comes to the offensive and defensive linemen, with no contact allowed, there's not a lot to be done. So I think once we get to training camp and practices start to get a little more physical, we'll really start to see guys begin to step up as those leaders. And yeah, I mean, I touched on it yesterday. I don't need to go into it again, but I really think Andrew Thomas is going to step up, and he's already shown that he can be a leader with his play. And I think he could really develop into, sort of that Trent Williams type of guy for the offense. Someone that's going to lead by example, play their heart out, play very good football, and also be one of those leading voices in the locker room.
And a big part of that is him staying healthy too, right?
Of course.
To make sure he's on the field for as many games as possible. Guys, the 2024 schedule is out, so take your fandom to the next level with the Giants season ticket membership. Stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days. Memberships are now available for the 2024 season. To learn more about all the exclusive member benefits, visit Giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. And while you're online, the Giants official connected TV streaming app, Giants TV, brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, smart TVs everywhere, and the Giants mobile app. Back to the phones, 201-939-4513. Scott, New Mexico is up next. Hey, Scotty.
Hey, guys. First of all, Matt, I already believe Andrew Thomas is the best tackle, period, right or left, in the league right now. I think he's dominating. And I also agree with a point that you made yesterday about the scheduling. Until you play the games, each game is important. I'm sure, when the schedule came out, Minnesota was there, and everybody said, well, that's a sure thing, and it's never a sure thing. I've been following football for probably 55 years, and I remember when San Francisco came into the Giants Stadium with 11 guys missing and Nick Mullen at quarterback and beat the crap out of us. So I don't put any kudos on what kind of schedule you play. You have to play each game individually. And I hope that theme is certainly on Brian Daboll's mind, and I'm sure it is, that each game is important. In regards to what I wanted to talk about today, I wanted to talk about what the Giants, if you had to make an assessment, I have two questions. The first is they look on paper to be a really great team. I'm also anxious to see Brian Burns play, although last year he finished tied for 62nd in total pressures, yet you watch his tape in 2022 and he looks like nobody can stop him. So I was wondering if he had an injury in 2023.
His snaps were a little bit down, Scott. That was a big part of it. Because frankly, the Panthers were
terrible.
Were bad, and they didn't have the lead a lot, so there weren't as many pass rushing opportunities. If you look at his rates, they weren't that far off from where he was before, even if his total number of pressures were a little bit lower last year.
Okay. So my main question is this. As you assess the Giants, two things. What do you think is missing that makes them, I wouldn't say not as good, but comparable to the other three teams in the division? Because the best way to make the playoffs is to win your division. All three teams, Philadelphia, Washington, Dallas, have made improvements. They've gotten good players. The Giants have gotten obviously good players too. But if you had to make an honest assessment, is there anything missing, do you think, from the Giants that puts them in the same level as those three teams? And then secondarily, can the Giants, with the current roster, if Daniel Jones, with the caveat being he's going to be healthy for the year, do they have all the players they need, or what particular player might be missing that they think they need to have, because they seem to be fairly complete as I'm looking at the roster right now. So what do you think they need, and then are they comparable to the other three teams that have made improvements in their rosters? And that's the only question I really had, and I'll take your answers off the air, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. In terms of what they're missing, I mean, I still think, we've talked about this before, and then we can circle back to the rest of the division. I think, experience at that second outside cornerback spot, and a guy that has, more of a track record than Flott does. So, he was a high draft pick. You hope that he can develop into that role and do good at it. But we don't, you don't have an Adoree Jackson sitting over there or Deontay Banks sitting over there, even, just 1 year, but still. So, I mean, that we talked about the three technique pass rusher a little bit. And, we don't know what's happening at tight end with Waller. That's another thing, and we don't know what this offensive line is going to look like yet. They threw numbers at the problem, but how high level of play are they going to get? So, to me, those are the things I look at in terms of where they could, still continue to improve from a roster standpoint moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head there. I don't really have anything to add, but about the division part of the question, first of all, Washington was the one team in the division that was worse than the Giants last year. And while they definitely made improvements in the offseason, including a complete total makeover, I mean, new GM, new coach, think about what the Giants did, in 2022. That's what Washington just went through, but even more so because they also drafted a rookie quarterback second overall. So, I expect Washington to be better, but how much better than last year? That I don't know. I still think there's definitely a gap between Washington and then Philadelphia and Dallas. At least about Philadelphia, I mean, I would say their biggest strength, and it's been their biggest strength for years now, is they just dominate in the trenches on both sides of the ball. They have, or the last couple of years have had one of, if not the best offensive lines, and one of, if not the best defensive lines.
I think Dallas is in that category too. I mean, Dallas led the NFL in sacks last year.
Yeah.
And pressure rate. So, I mean, and we know they've always had a good offensive line. We'll see this year they've lost some players. Tyron Smith's not there anymore.
Yep.
They lost Tyler Biotis. We'll see how they kind of rebound with two young guys in those spots this year. But that, to me, has always been the difference with Dallas and Philly. And every time the Giants play Dallas and Philly, what happens? The Giants can't block them.
Yeah.
The Giants can't block them. It's really simple. And the Cowboys and Eagles have blocked the hell out of the Giants' defensive line. And that's where those teams, to me, Matt, I think you hit it right on the head. That's exactly where they've dominated the Giants.
100%. And, you look at the Eagles and the Cowboys, and at least the last couple of years, they've also both had, that stud number one offensive weapon, wide receiver, really. Obviously, the Cowboys have CeeDee Lamb. The Eagles have A.J. Brown along with Devontae Smith. And at least in terms of that, the Giants went out and got what they hoped to be their CeeDee Lamb, their A.J. Brown in Malik Neighbors. So I do think Malik Neighbors will definitely help elevate the offense overall, which I think will help show, that the gap maybe between the Giants and those other two teams not quite as big as, some in the media are portraying it as.
Hey, have you ever used Cheapo Air?
For years, and I really like it. With Cheapo Air, you can book online, use their app, or even over the phone. They've got great prices on over 500 airlines and millions of accommodations. They're my go-to for travel planning. And if you join their Club Miles program, you can earn points to save on the cost of your travel. Book on the app, and you get double points.
Sounds like it's time I tried Cheapo Air.
Call Cheapo Air at 855-247-3279 or visit cheapoair.com/podcast.
Well, then I think high-level quarterback play too, right? I mean, we've seen, of course, Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott have both been top 10 quarterbacks the past 2 years. They've been in that category. Daniel had a great year 2 years ago. Last year he was hurt a lot. Can he play as well as Hurts and Prescott has over the last couple of years when they're at their best and they're making Pro Bowls? They're making, Dak Prescott was second in MVP voting last year. People like to poo-poo that because he hasn't won many playoff games. He was second in MVP voting. He was voted as the most valuable player in the NFC. The only person he was behind was Lamar Jackson.
Yeah,
so
he had a great season.
Great season. So can you get that level of quarterback play? And again, I think Jalen Hurts, a lot of that's the running part of it. I think he needs to be more consistent as a passer still. But still, can you get to that level of quarterback play and health at the quarterback position, frankly, because Prescott and Hurts generally don't miss many games. They just, even if they're hurt, they just play through it because they're gigantic, tough guys. And Daniel, for the most part, has done that too, except when, tear up your knee, your neck, it happens, right? So I think that's the other thing that separates you, right? Besides winning up front, can you get the health and the consistent level of quarterback play week in, week out?
And honestly, I think those two are obviously very connected.
Oh, sure.
I mean, if you put Jalen Hurts or Dak Prescott behind, the offensive line that Daniel Jones played behind last year, or even any of the quarterbacks for the Giants played behind last year, they aren't having as successful of seasons as they had. I mean, a big part of their success has been the very strong offensive line play in front of them. And obviously the Giants, as we just touched on, they went and spent money to improve the offensive line. They spent most of their resources in free agency in their protection up front. And they did that in hopes that it'll help elevate the quarterback play from Daniel Jones. And I mean, Daniel Jones had a good season 2 years ago, and it was behind an offensive line that, while better than last year, still wasn't, an amazing offensive line.
No, it was slightly below average.
Yeah. So
it was like the 20th best offense, like the 22nd best offensive line, whatever it is. And then it wasn't the 30th. That was kind of the key.
Yeah. So, I mean, if the offensive line can even just be like middle of the pack.
Well, if you can get the middle, that's great.
You don't need a top, 5, top 10. Oh, obviously that would be great, but you don't need that in order to have success.
I always say this: stay out of the bottom quartile. If you can stay out of that bottom quartile, which is obviously this 32 team, so the bottom 8. If you can stay out of that 25 to 32 area and be 24th or better, that's okay because you're functional.
Yes.
That's all you need.
That's literally all you need. Daniel Jones has already shown that if given a little bit of protection, he can help the Giants win. So hopefully the offensive line improves. I think that will help bridge the gap between the Giants and those other two teams in the division. And, as we touched on our first point in the trenches, also on the defensive line, stopping the run has been, an Achilles heel for the defense the last couple of seasons. If they can improve in that regard, both trenches, then the gap between the Giants and the Eagles and Cowboys is going to be a lot smaller than what people are, portraying it as at this moment.
Yeah, Dallas had losses over the offseason, right?
And they didn't add anyone, really.
No, they didn't. They didn't have any money.
They signed, I think, one free agent of note, Eric Kendricks, a linebacker, and that was replacing Leighton Vander Esch, really.
Correct. So,
I mean, they really did not add much. I mean, they had a strong draft.
When you have Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons all hitting free agency in the next 3 years, you have to conserve your money a little bit because they're going to make an awful lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, Dak Prescott especially.
Yeah, I think
I'm surprised he hasn't signed they haven't given him a contract yet, because
I don't know what
the longer they wait, the more other quarterbacks around the league are going to sign for big money, and then Dak is just going to want more than those guys.
Yeah, I don't quite. I've talked about. I don't know quite what their strategy is down there. But when all is said and done, if you add up the average yearly salary for those three players, once they all sign, they'll probably make up $120 million of the Cowboys salary cap.
That's crazy.
Because you figure
well earned and deserved, but crazy.
I mean, it's just hard to manage the rest of your roster, right? I mean, because you figure CeeDee and Micah are both going to make at least 30 each.
Yep.
Right?
CeeDee, especially after his season.
And Prescott is minimum 55.
Yeah.
Right? Goff just got 53. Dak's better than he is. I think he is, at least.
I think he's going to push for 60. 60
I agree.
Plus.
So I figure then you figure I 55, 30, 30 is minimums for all three. That puts you at 115. And then you can go up as high as 130 between the three of them, depending on where those things land. So 100%. So those guys are going to get paid, and then you have to figure out what the rest of your roster looks like after that. So it's a good problem to have. Look, when you have to pay your own guys because they're so good you can't let them leave, that's a problem all teams want to have.
Yes.
But it certainly does hamstring building your roster in other ways when you have so much money dedicated to a few, albeit awesome players, but again, there's only so much money to go around here.
Yep.
Jeff in Maine, he'll wrap us up today. Jeff, what's going on?
Hey, afternoon, gentlemen. So it's looking like the kickoff return game is going to have a lot more importance this year. Who would you say our leading candidates to return kickoffs would be, and would you include Gary Brightwell in that group?
Yeah, I think all the running backs will be involved in kickoff at this point. Maybe not Singletary, just because did he do kick returns in Buffalo at some point when he first started? I have to look that up. I don't quite remember.
That I'm not sure.
But yeah, I think all the running backs will be involved in that. I think Tyrone Tracy will have a chance to be a big contributor there. Eric Gray, I know he had trouble catching punts last year. I don't know what they would think about him as being a potential guy on kickoff return. Those would be the guys I would think about. Maybe could you think about a Wan'Dale Robinson? Gunnar Olszewski could be in that mix too, as the guy who's kind of in
Isaiah McKenzie.
That's a good one too. Another one of those smaller, speed guys at wide receiver. Those are the guys that I would mostly think about, right? I don't really know who else would be in the mix.
Well, I've been thinking about this. What if you have a situation where it's towards the end of the half or towards the end of the game and you're in dire need of a big return? Do you put Malik Neighbors back there?
I've brought that up before, and Paul yelled at me.
Really?
Yes.
I mean,
right, Pearson? You remember that, right? Paul yelled at me when I brought that up.
The whole point of the new kickoff rules is to make it a safer play. Obviously, and you could still get hurt even with these new rules, and you don't want to necessarily put your best offensive weapon in, more of a risk to get hurt. But I'm not saying like make him the kick returner, but I'm saying in certain circumstances where you are in dire need of a big return to set the offense up in good field position, why wouldn't you put him back there?
I said the same thing about Saquon.
Yeah,
when he was here. If you need if you're down 4 and you're receiving a kickoff with 8 seconds to go, put him back there.
100%.
I'm not saying you make him your every kickoff return guy, but if it's a really important situation and you need a big return, get the ball in your best player's hands, man.
Exactly.
No, I'm with you. I'm not one to kind of worry about injuries. I don't think that's the way you should live your life.
I agree.
So what are your big Memorial Day?
Yeah,
go ahead. What do you got? I didn't realize you were still there, Jeff. I'm sorry. My bad.
That's right. Same question on defending kickoff returns, and I'll take the answer out there.
I think your special teams will be special teams. A lot of safeties, a lot of defensive backs, a lot of linebackers.
Yep.
And that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
You want your best tackles. You want guys that are fast, and you want guys that are physical. So I think those are the guys that kind of make up that group. Maybe, one of your bigger – Bryce Ford-Wheaton was the guy that did a pretty good job on specials last year in the summer. He's a bigger guy. Gary Brightwell's always been again, running backs, right? Fast, physical, position group, and guys that can tackle. So those would be the guys I would think of. And
Carter Coughlin has obviously been a successful special teams player the last couple seasons.
I feel like they drafted Darius Moiseau mainly for that.
Oh, he will absolutely.
Yes.
He will be a core special teamer, Pearson. No
question. 100%.
Yes.
I mean, especially Cam Brown is no longer with the team. He signed, I believe, with the Miami Dolphins. So and Cam Brown was up there with Carter Coughlin as probably the two best special teams tacklers the last couple of seasons.
I mean, would you shock you if Tyler Nubin lined up with the first group of special teamers in game 1 of the season?
Would not shock me at all.
Andrew Phillips is a physical player, too. They like his physicality. I wouldn't be shocked if he was out there.
Yeah.
I
mean,
special
we've
teams week 1.
seen McLeod have a successful
He'll
time
be a staple.
in special teams.
Yep, gunner.
Yeah. So, again, those few positions that you just mentioned, it's going to be a collection of guys from those positions. It's a little tougher to, name specific players. It's not like the kick returner where there's 1, maybe 2 kick returners.
Right.
A little different when you're on the other side of the kickoff. But, yeah, it's the same guys that have been, on those units the last couple of seasons that are still with the team. They'll most likely be out there again this season.
Yeah, I wonder if you might get a couple more bigger people on kick coverage because they don't have to run as far. So could you
maybe
put
more linebackers?
Could you put like Boogie Basham on kick coverage because he doesn't have to cover as much ground? He doesn't have to sprint down there as far. Could you put Tom on? I think Fox might have done kick return anyway. To be honest, kick coverage. To be honest with you, but could you? I'm not saying like Dexter or something like that, but could you put maybe a couple of your bigger edge defenders in that situation because there's less ground to cover?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and I think that's why I've mentioned this on past shows. This year, more than ever, the preseason is going to be very important because it's going to be the first time that every team across the league is going to really be able to test out, their theories on how to approach these new kickoff rules. It's the first time they'll actually be able to do it in a real game situation. And, people can have their ideas of what this new kickoff is going to be like, but no one actually knows until they're out there actually, participating in these plays. So I wouldn't be surprised if, the kickoff return units kind of get switched up throughout the preseason. Even once the season begins, we could see guys shuffling in and out of there until they find the right combination of guys, both on kickoffs and kickoff returns.
Now, I might be watching the drills incorrectly, and maybe they're cross purposes. I think most of the special team work they've done so far has been punt stuff. So I've not seen much in practice in terms of aligning for the kick return stuff. So I wonder if they're going to maybe introduce that next week, and they focused on punt week 1. So I've been trying to keep it all. I've been watching. I'm very excited to see how they handle this, and I haven't. Again, maybe some of these drills have cross purposes, but it seems like more punt centric to me than kick.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
We'll see how that goes. Anyway, what's your big Memorial Day plans? Newly married man.
I am heading out to my wife's family's house in the Hamptons for the weekend.
Oh,
very
Hamptons.
Relaxing weekend.
Big time. Citak. Hamptons time.
Have a nice chill weekend out there.
Nice.
I need a little bit of downtime after. So my wedding was the week before the draft. I had my wedding, the draft, which is our craziest weekend of the entire year, and then one of my wife's good friends got married in the Bahamas the following weekend.
Oh, wow.
So I was literally in the Bahamas for maybe 30 hours, but Friday to Sunday, and then got back and immediately left for Japan for the honeymoon. So I've been on the go for about 5 weeks now, and I'm very much looking forward to a weekend of just doing absolutely nothing.
I've never been. What does one do in the Hamptons?
I mean, it depends. I like to go out there and
fancy parties and such.
Maybe back in my party days, maybe. Now, no. Now I go out there, sit by the pool.
Okay,
maybe go out
maybe
go out for a lunch or a dinner.
Aren't there tomatoes and the big Hampton tomatoes? Is that a thing?
I think that's a thing.
That's a thing, right?
Yeah.
Hampton tomatoes.
Go sit on the public beach.
Okay.
But yeah, this is gonna be a chill weekend for me. What about yourself?
I think I'm taking the daughter to Great Adventure tomorrow.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's exciting.
We did like a trial run to Sesame Place like a month and a half ago, and she had a great time.
Okay.
So I decided it was time to rip the Band-Aid off and do Great Adventure. So
that's awesome.
So yeah, I think we might do Central Park Zoo another day this weekend. So that'll be fun.
Love that. Highly recommend it.
And I don't know if I want to squeeze in another big third thing because I might just lose power and just pass out somewhere. But I think that's a pretty full weekend.
Yeah. Sounds like a great weekend.
You got a wedding, right, Pearson? Who's getting married?
My friend Jack.
Nice. Where's it?
At?
Up in Maine, near Portland.
Ooh,
Okay.
Maine.
Yep.
Charlie, you're invited.
No,
if you want to come by and say what's up.
That's why I didn't give a specific location.
How many rounds of golf do you have planned for up in Maine this weekend, Pearson?
At least one.
Okay,
Yeah.
at least one. That's all.
There you go.
That's all I wanted to hear. Everybody, thanks for joining us on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. For Matthew Citak, for Pearson Butler, I am John Schmeelk. No show on Friday. Thank you, Pearson. No show on Monday either for Memorial Day. I know I mentioned that earlier in the week, but it's good to remind everyone again. No show Friday. No show Monday. Well, they should have guessed what I told them. I'm going to Great Adventure. She's going to the Hamptons. Unless we're going to drag in Dom to host a show solo tomorrow. It doesn't sound like anyone's going to be here. So, yeah, the office is closed Friday and Monday, folks. So no show on Friday or Monday. And we'll see you next Tuesday when the Giants have their 4th OTA. We'll have covered for you right here on the Giants app, Giants.com, and all the Giants social media platforms. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend, everybody. Say a prayer for all those that have lost their lives fighting for our country. And we'll see you next week.
The South Dakota Stories, Volume 7. My trip to South Dakota was the best summer ever. Now I don't need to go to Mars, because I've been to the Badlands. And I caught a bigger walleye than Dad when we went to the Missouri River. Then I rode my bike through these huge rocks called needles. Ooh, I also saw my first herd of bison, even a fuzzy furry baby one. I can't wait to go back and see more. There's so much South Dakota, so little time.
Zero Foxtrot isn't just a brand, it's a way of life. Founded and operated by veterans, Zero Foxtrot's unique apparel and gear echoes the grit of the warrior culture. Zero Foxtrot dedicates itself to producing content, honoring the sacrifices of forgotten heroes of the past, and connecting history to the present. Embark on a journey with Zero Foxtrot today at zerofoxtrot.com. It's not merely our products, it's about the ethos that we embody. Rugged, resilient, and timeless.